The climate crisis has long become our reality. If we do not respond collectively, it is expected to pose an irreversible threat not only to the ecosystem but also to human civilization as a whole. Furthermore, the damage caused by the climate crisis could be concentrated on those in socio-economically vulnerable conditions, risking further deepening structural inequalities. South Korea ranks 7th in global carbon emissions and has seen the fastest increase in CO2 emissions over the past 20 years worldwide. It is a country that needs to actively reduce carbon emissions and will bear significant socioeconomic conflicts and costs in the decarbonization process, necessitating a committed response. Efforts and a just transition to overcome the climate crisis are tasks that can no longer be postponed or delayed. If the labor movement continues to delay active responses, South Korea will fall behind other countries in responding to the climate crisis, leave the widening gap between new and existing industrial sectors to the market, and create greater inequality by overlapping existing and new inequalities. Based on this awareness, the Korean Labor and Society Institute organized a space where activists from the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, the Federation of Korean Trade Unions, and various industrial labor organizations could communicate without barriers. Specifically, a public forum for labor unions in response to the climate crisis was opened, inviting labor and civil society activists, environmental and climate policy experts, and journalists to discuss the current status of labor unions in confronting the climate crisis and their future direction of activities. The forum conducted the following projects. First, 6 expert lectures were held to systematically explain the seriousness of the climate crisis and concretely explore response measures. Second, a roundtable was held with activists from 4 industry unions directly affected by the climate crisis to share their specific situations and ideas. This report summarizes the results of these lectures and roundtables. Each chapter is summarized below. The full text can be downloaded from the website of the Korean Labor and Society Institute. https bit.ly/KLC Chapter 2 diagnoses the labor sector's response to the climate crisis. The labor sector is developing strategies centered on ecological transition, job transition, and overcoming inequality, emphasizing the importance of considering the rights and duties of workers and the recognition of job significance by the climate movement. Chapter 3 looks at the current status of carbon neutrality policies in various countries and their impact on us. The rapidly changing carbon neutrality policies of various countries and the introduction of new policies such as carbon border taxes are having a significant impact on Korean companies, indicating that net zero practices across the entire corporate value chain are essential for securing competitiveness in the global market. Chapter 4 discusses whether a growth system centered on exports can address the climate crisis. As long as the export-centered growth system continues, there will be limitations in responding to the climate crisis. This chapter discusses the need for difficult decisions, such as reducing manufacturing production in the process of responding to the climate crisis. Chapter 5 examines the issues of green transition and just transition in Korea. For a green and just transition in Korea, solidarity and cooperation among various stakeholders are essential, especially the active participation of the labor sector along with the joint efforts of the government, companies, and civil society is emphasized. Chapter 6 looks at the development of laws and regulations for responding to the climate crisis and the direction of union intervention. The role of unions in responding to the climate crisis through a legislative approach is important. It emphasizes the need for policy development considering the health and safety of workers while promoting institutional changes such as the disclosure of climate-related financial information. Chapter 7 discusses the social policies and direction of labor movement intervention needed for a labor-friendly carbon-neutral industrial transition. Building solidarity between labor groups and green groups through active labor market policies is necessary. The importance of job creation and transition in the green transition process is discussed, and various social policies are proposed for support. Chapter 8 diagnoses and prescribes the current labor movement's response to the climate crisis. The direction and specific cases of the labor movement's response to the climate crisis are discussed, emphasizing the need for concrete action plans for climate justice and the recognition of the climate crisis within the labor movement.